Hello friends, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about the different types of receptors that are involved in the cell signaling pathways. So what do I mean by cell signaling pathways? So some receptors are common for plant as well as animal biosystems or the animal systems. Irrespective of whether it is plant or animal, if you take any cell for the process of cellular development, cell division, for the cell aging or the cell death caused by apoptosis, there are lots, or in case of plants for the production of secondary metabolites, there are lots of cell signaling pathways that are undergoing. So one cell should communicate with the other cell, or a stress molecule should communicate to a cell to produce certain type of metabolites. So all this is accompanied by a long cascade of pathways called as cellular signaling. So for this signaling process, you have certain receptor molecules, let it be an animal or let it be a plant cell. In case of animals, why do a cell needs a receptor? For example, there are lots of neurotransmitters that are involved, acetylcholine, dopamine, all these things are messenger molecule that is involved in cell signaling process. So for each cell, we have different types of receptors. In this video, we are going to talk about what are receptors, where are they present, certain characteristics, physical characteristics of the receptors. So let's move into the topic without any delay. So generally the receptors are protein molecules. They are complex macromolecules or a cluster of macromolecules. So it can be a single protein or it can be a group or cluster of macromolecules like proteins. So far people were thinking that all the receptors are protein molecules, but receptors always cannot be proteinaceous substances. For example, if you take DNA is made up of, we all know DNA is a macromolecule that is made up of sugars, nitrogenous bases and phosphate group. Even DNA is a complex receptor. How can DNA be receptor? Because certain agents or mutagens like alkylating agent and certain other chemical substances can come and directly bind to the DNA. So DNA also acts as receptor, but DNA is not protein. So most of the receptors are protein, but not all receptors are protein. So you can remember this one tagline. Just to keep in mind, you can take the example of DNA. So we'll come again to the definition of receptors. What are receptors? Receptors are a complex macromolecule substances or a cluster of molecule substances, complex molecules. Then many macromolecules will bind together to form a single receptor. Now, what are the characteristics of receptor? A receptor should have two main basic characteristics. So if you take this as a receptor molecule, if you take this as a receptor molecule, it has two binding domains. It has the first binding domain is called as the ligand binding domain. This is called as the ligand binding domain. So we will come to what is a ligand, all those things we will come in a while. It is called as ligand binding domain. So this is the first domain where a ligand molecule comes and attaches. What are this ligand? This ligand are chemical substances. They are the chemical substances which brings about the structural and conformational change of my receptor molecule. So this is my receptor molecule. Once this ligand comes and binds, it changes the receptor molecule and it activates many other pathways. So ligand are chemical molecules. It can be small ions, it can be small chemicals, or it can be small proteins, so it can be neurotransmitters, it can be anything. Ligand are certain chemical substances or chemical messengers. It can be calcium or it can be some ions, it can be or some chemical molecules, it can be, that binds to the receptor molecule and induces the structural and conformational changes. Once the receptor changes in its structure and the conformation, that is a signal for the cell to produce certain messengers. So it gets activated or it gets inactivated and it follows a cascade of pathways. So the starting method or the triggering point is the binding of ligand. So in some cases, if the ligand is removed from the receptor, that also activates some of the pathways. So there are two methods. One, if the ligand binds to the receptor, certain pathways might be activated. In the other cases, if the ligand is removed from the receptor, that also triggers some of the pathways. So when you are going in higher classes, In the other videos, in depth we will know what type of pathways is activated when ligand are attached, or what type of pathways gets activated if the ligand is taken. That we will study in depth in higher classes and other higher videos. So this is about the ligand binding domain. And then we have another region that is called as effector binding domain. So it can be, we have another region. This is called as effector binding domain. Effector binding domain. What does this effector binding domain means? Once the ligand comes and binds, there are certain conformational changes that I mentioned. So there are certain molecules called as effectors which might come and bind in this region. So it gets exposed for the secondary pathways to get activated, for the secondary messengers to come and bind. So what is a receptor? Receptor has two structures it has. Ligand binding domain and effector binding domain. These two things are very, very important. Now, we will move on to where are these receptors present in a cell. So if you take a cell, if this is a cell, plant cell or animal cell, and this is the central nucleus, where are the receptors present? There are 4 places where a receptor can be present. The receptors can be present on the membrane itself. The receptors can be present on the membrane itself. They are called as transmembrane receptors or integral proteins. So they are called as the transmembrane receptors. They are present on the cellular membrane, on the plasma membrane they are present. They are the first region where a receptor can be located. Now, what is the significance, or why is this receptor should be present over here? Now, for example, if a ligand substance cannot pass through the cell membrane, so in what scenario the ligand cannot pass through the cell membrane? There are 2 scenarios. If the ligand is not lipid attracting, if it is not lipid liking, or if the ligand is macromolecule. If the ligand is macromolecule, that means the ligand is very big. The ligand size is very big, it cannot pass through the membrane. That is one scenario. And if the ligand is hydrophilic, or I can call it as lipophobic. So plasma membrane is made up of lipid bilayer. Since it is lipid bilayer, if the ligand molecule does not, it is enmity against the lipid molecule. It does not like lipid. If a ligand molecule is not liking a lipid molecule, it cannot diffuse through that lipid membrane, through that lipid bilayer. So it is also hydrophilic or lipophobic. So if the ligand is bigger in substances, and if it is polar, if it is charged, if the lipid molecules are highly polar, if the ligand molecules are highly polarized, if they are charged or they are big in structure, shape and size, and if they are hydrophilic or lipophobic, they cannot pass through the cell membrane. So the receptors should be present on the cell membrane. So the receptors are present on the cell membrane. So that is, we will study some of the examples, then you will know what type of ligand. For example, insulin receptors, GPCR receptors, all these receptors are transmembrane receptors. So they are all present on the membrane. This is the first position where the receptor can be found. Second position, it can be found inside the cell membrane, inside a cell, in the cytoplasm or the cytosol it can be found. Certain receptors can be found in the cytosol. This is the second type of receptors where they can be found in the cytoplasm or cytosol. And the third one can be found even inside the nucleus. The third type of receptors can be found even inside the nucleus. So I will give 2 more examples for these 2 receptors. If you see certain substances like estrogen and tyrosine, the receptors for estrogen and tyrosine are present inside the cell. They are called as intercellular receptor. Intercellular or intracellular receptor. They are present inside the cell. They are present inside the cell. So they are called as intracellular receptor. Not intercellular. They are called as intracellular receptor. That means they are present inside the cell. So tyrosine molecule, thyroid hormone, and estrogen is 2 such examples. Out of these two, the estrogen receptors are present in the cytosol, in the cytoplasm, and the tyrosine receptor or the T3 receptor. Tyrosine receptor or the T3 receptor is found in the nucleus. Is found in the nucleus, and you can take DNA also. DNA is also a receptor that I said, so that is also found inside the nucleus. So here, these substances are small in substance. These are ligands. Estrogen and tyrosine are ligands. These ligands are micromolecular. They are small in substance, small in structure and shape, and they can diffuse through the lipid membrane. They are hydrophobic. They are hydrophobic. They are hydrophobic or lipophilic, I can call it as. Lipophilic. Lipo means fat, philic means love. Love towards lipid, fat. Hydro means water, phobic means hate. Hate towards water. So these are lipid loving substances. Estrogen is a lipid loving substances. Similarly, tyrosine molecule T3 secreted by the thyroid hormone is also a lipid loving substances, and they are very small in shape and size. So they can easily diffuse through the cell membrane. So their receptors are present inside the cell wall or inside the cell. So if the ligand molecules are small and if they are hydrophobic, they can pass through the lipid bilayer easily. They can diffuse through it easily. So their receptors are present in either in the cytosol or they are present inside the nucleus. They are called as intracellular receptors. The second type and the third type. Second type is present in the cytoplasm or the cytosol. The third type is present inside the nucleus. There are certain molecules which are very big, which are polysaccharides, which are very large units, and they are roaming in the space, intercellular space, and such receptors are called as extracellular receptors. That is the fourth type. Fourth type. They are present in the outer environment. They are present in the outside the cell. If you take, for example, human beings, there are certain receptors present in the blood plasma. So they are called as the, for example, one receptor called as antithrombin 3 receptor, which binds to the heparin molecule. So this is present in the blood plasma, that is outside the cell. So there are certain receptors present in the intercellular space or outside the cell. They are called as extracellular receptors. They are called as extracellular receptors. So you have to remember these 4 receptors which is present on the membrane, transmembrane, inside intracellular and outside extracellular receptors. So we will start from this extracellular receptors. As I mentioned, this extracellular, there are certain coagulating factors and certain others. I'll give some examples and then we will discuss. So one example that I was said was, one example of this receptor is antithrombin 3. Antithrombin 3 is a receptor to this which ligand binds, a ligand called as heparin binds. So ligand binding domain, in that ligand binding domain, heparin comes and binds. Once this heparin comes and binds to this receptor in plasma, I am talking about in the antithrombin 3, the activity of antithrombin 3 factor increases, of this receptor increases. So its activity increases. What is its activity is, it inactivates the other coagulation factor. It inactivates the coagulation factor. We have certain coagulation factors. It goes and inactivates all those coagulation factors. To be more precise, coagulation factor 10. So this increases the inactivation. It goes and chops the coagulation factor and it inactivates them when the heparin molecule binds to this antithrombin 3. This is one example for your extracellular receptor and its function. Like that, there are certain drug substances, the drugs that we take from the pharmaceutical industries, the drug that we take, they are all targeted to certain antibodies. So those antibodies are present in the plasma. So even they act as extracellular receptors. So the drugs acts as a ligand that goes and binds to the antibodies, and these antibodies, they might bring about some other action. They might go and trigger certain cellular responses, certain inflammatory responses or immunological responses they might go and trigger, or they might reduce the certain maybe fever. They might reduce the, or they might trigger the immunological responses. So drugs binding to antibodies is one such example. Similarly, drugs binds to a complementary protein. So in the complementary pathway, in the complementary system, we have discussed different types of complementation, classical pathway and all those things we have discussed it. So if you have not watched, I'll give you the link in the description. Please go do watch those videos. There we have certain proteins, complementary proteins we call it as. One such protein is C5a. So certain complementary proteins are there. So these drugs can go and target those complementary proteins also. Even that is considered as an extracellular receptor pathways. So these are some of the common things. So now we will move on to the transmembrane receptors. In detail we will study. These are also called as membranous receptors. So we are going to study about the membranous receptor that is present on the membrane. Membranous receptors that we are going to study. What are the different types of membranous receptors? First one is a single pass receptor. So this is the cell membrane. This is cell membrane. You have just one polypeptide chain you have, and you have a ligand binding domain towards the outer terminal, towards the outer end. You have ligand binding domain. You have towards the cytosol or towards the cytoplasm, you have effector binding domain. Effector binding domain. So this is called as single pass receptor or one pass receptor. Why do I mean it as one pass? Because there is one polypeptide chain that is passing through the membrane only once. You can see this black color polypeptide chain that is passing through the membrane only once. So it is called as one pass receptor or single pass receptor. What are the example? One example is your insulin receptor. So usually whenever insulin comes, there is something called as dimerization happens. Another one pass receptor also comes together and they both dimerize. So two molecules, two one pass receptors come together and they form a dimer. But still it is example for our one pass receptor. Insulin receptor and tyrosine kinase receptor. There is another receptor called as tyrosine kinase receptor. So these two are example for one pass receptor or single pass receptor. That is the first type we are going to study under transmembrane receptor or membranous receptor. First one is one pass receptor. One pass receptor it is called as, or a single pass receptor. The second one that we are going to study is called as 4 or 5 pass receptor. It depends. It's not always 4 and it is not 5. It is 4 to 5. So you have something called as ion channels. This is the second type that we are going to study. Ion channels are one good example, which are 4 to 5 pass receptors. So what happens over here? You have an ion channel and the polypeptide chain passes through the membrane 4 times or 5 times. The polypeptide chain passes through the membrane 4 to 5 times. So it is called as 4 or 5 pass receptors, and these ion channels has a ligand binding domain outside. It has a ligand binding domain outside, ligand binding domain, and similarly this also has an effector binding domain towards the inner side. Effector binding domain towards the inner side. So one example over here is acetylcholine. Once if the acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, if this acetylcholine comes and binds, so let me call this as acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. When this neurotransmitter comes and binds to this ligand binding, the ionic channels are opened or closed. And what happens as a result, the sodium and potassium ion efflux and influx will happen. It is involved in your cell signaling, the neuron signaling. It is involved in synapse, in nerve conduction. We would have studied the nerve conduction. So these are all involved, ion channels are involved there. When acetylcholine comes and binds, the ion channels are either opened or closed. So they are regulated by this ligand. This ligand controls these ion channels. So these are called as ligand gated ion channels. They are called as ligand ligand gated ion channels, ligand operated ion channels. So these ionic channels are regulated. The opening and the closing of these ionic channels are regulated or operated by ligand molecules like neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. So once when they bind, it regulates the opening and closing of the ionic channels. That in turn what happens? It regulates the ionic movement. It regulates or controls the ionic movement. It is involved in the ionic influx or influx. It is involved in ionic flux. So these are the example for the second type of membranous receptors, which are 4 or 5 pass receptors. These are called as acetylcholine receptors. They are called as cholinergic nicotinic receptors. These are called as cholinergic nicotinic receptors. Moving on to the third type of receptors. So this is the second type, 4 to 5 pass receptors we call it as. Moving to the third type. So moving to the third type, they are called as 7 pass receptors or serpentine receptors. Very important, because most of the receptors in our body are 7 pass receptors, and most of the drugs also are targeted for the 7 pass receptors only. So if this is the cell membrane, you have an ligand binding domain towards the outer end. You have a polypeptide chain that passes through the membrane. 7 times it passes. So look at the structure carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. It passes through the membrane 7 times. Hence it is called as 7 pass receptor. The third type you are studying, it is called as 7 pass receptor. And it looks like a snake, like how the snake crawls. It looks like that. The polypeptide chain is bent like a snake. Hence it is also called as serpentine receptor. Serpentine means snake. So it is also called as serpentine receptors. So you have to remember, the polypeptide chain passes through the membrane 7 times. Hence it is called as 7 pass receptor or a serpentine receptor. It's a polypeptide chain. It's an amino acid, or it is made up of proteins or amino acid. So if you take any polypeptide or any protein, it has 2 terminal region. It has an amino acid terminal region and an carboxyl terminal. So if I take a polypeptide, it has an amino acid end and it has a carboxyl acid end. This is also a polypeptide. The amino acid terminus is facing towards the outside the cell. That you have to keep in mind. So this will be the amino acid terminal, and your carboxyl terminal is present inside the cell. The carboxyl terminal is present inside the cell. So this is one of the feature of the 7 pass receptors. The amino acid end is present towards the outside, and the carboxyl terminal or the C terminal is present in the inside. Now these are also called as one example of the 7 pass receptors. One very common example is G protein coupled receptors. G protein coupled receptors. These are called as GPCR. Short form is GPCR. So GPCR is also called as 7 pass receptor or serpentine receptors. What do I mean by G protein coupled receptor? There is a protein called as G protein that is coupled or that is attached with this receptor. Hence it is called as G protein coupled receptor. Now what is this G protein? G protein, the name itself says, it is a protein that binds to GTP or GDP, guanosine triphosphate or guanosine diphosphate. So we will talk about G protein. So G protein is a protein that binds to either GDP or it either binds to GTP. It either binds to GDP or GTP. Such protein, macromolecular proteins are called as G protein. There are 2 types of G protein. One is monomeric G protein. The other one is trimeric. The name itself says mono means one, meros means unit. There is only one component or there is only one single unit. Then such type of G protein is called as monomeric G protein. Monomeric G protein. If there's only one component or one unit, such type of G protein is called as monomeric G protein. Trimeric, tri means three. If there are three subunits, these three subunits come together and they are functioning as one single G protein, then they are called as trimeric G protein. So these three subunits are called as alpha subunit, beta subunit and gamma subunit. They are named alpha, beta, gamma. If three subunits are present, then they are called as trimeric G protein. If one monomeric, if only one subunit is present or one component is present, they are called as monomeric G protein. In case of our G protein coupled receptor or 7-pass receptor or serpentine receptor, it is the trimeric G protein that is involved. So we have to always remember this. It is the trimeric G protein that is involved in our 7-pass receptors. So what is 7-pass receptor or serpentine receptor? It is a trimeric protein, G protein, that is coupled or that is attached with our receptor, with the 7-pass receptor. Now, if there is some signal molecule that comes over here, that ligand molecule comes over here. So we are not going in depth of how they are activated. In this video, we are just going to talk about the broad classification or categories of receptors. Here and there we will just touch slightly. So for example, there is some molecule that comes, let us consider some molecule that comes and binds over to the receptor. When this ligand binds to the 7-pass receptor, it exposes the C terminal. Look at this, the C terminal is hidden. The C terminal is not, the effector binding domain is not exposed, it is hidden. Once the ligand comes and binds, it exposes the C terminal region or the effector binding region. It is exposing now. It is exposing the C terminal region or effector binding domain. It exposes once the ligand comes, and to this terminal our G protein comes and attaches. 3 units, trimeric. So alpha, beta, gamma. So 3 subunits. Our trimeric G protein comes and attaches to this. And now there are so many in G protein GPCR pathway, you will see. So it might go and activate the CAMP, cyclic AMP, or it might go and activate calcium ion. So there are so many other signaling pathways that are involved. So this is the triggering point or the starting point for it. When a ligand comes and binds to the amino terminal end or to the ligand binding domain, it exposes the C terminal or it exposes the effector binding domain that facilitates the binding of the trimeric G protein. That facilitates the binding of the trimeric G protein, and this activates the secondary messengers. Why are they called as secondary messengers? The primary messenger is the ligand. The primary messenger is a ligand over here. Only once the first message comes, the second message gets activated. So they are called as the primary messengers, and these are called as the secondary messengers. It might be calcium or it can be CAMP. So these are all considered as the secondary messengers. Again, you can give this example. This can again be a acetylcholine also. So acetylcholine can come as a 4 to 5 in case of ligand-gated ionic channels also. There you can give example. Here also you can give example. Cholinergic receptors. So this cholinergic receptors. What are these cholinergic receptors that I am giving example in both the types? So we have cholinergic receptors. These are the receptors that are involved in the binding of your neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. There are 2 types of cholinergic receptor. One is nicotinic receptors, and the other one is muscarinic receptors. So your nicotinic receptors, cholinergic nicotinic receptors are example for 4 to 5-pass receptors or ionic channels. The second type that we studied, and the muscarinic receptors, that is the example for your GPCR or your 7-pass receptors. So both acetylcholine is your ligand molecule. In both these cases, acetylcholine acts as your ligand. So acetylcholine acts as the signaling molecule for both. So based on whether it is nicotinic, it is 4 or 5 pass receptor. If it is muscarinic, it is your GPCR or a 7 pass receptor. So we finished 3 types of receptors, starting from a single pass or 1 pass. The second one was 4 or 5 pass or ligand gated ionic channels. The third one was 7 membrane receptor, 7 receptors, or for 7 pass receptors or serpentine receptors. And the last type of receptors that we are going to study is the 12 pass receptors. Yes, there is one receptor that is called as 12 pass receptors. The name itself says the fourth type is the 12 pass receptors. So if this is a cell membrane, same structure, same story holds good here also. You have certain ligand binding domain outside, you have ligand binding domain you have outside, and this polypeptide chain passes through the membrane 12 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I am not counting it, 12 times it passes. It passes through the membrane 12 times, and such type of receptors are called as 12 pass receptors. Now what is the significance and where is it present? Let us see. And these are present on the presynaptic membranes of the monoaminergic neurons. So we have to understand the term first before moving on to the receptors. What are, for example, let me consider a neuron. So we know what is a neuron. In between that neuron, there is a gap through which the chemical transmitters are there. So if you see the conduction of an impulse or the transfer of an impulse of a synapse, you would have known that if this is the neuron, you have a neuronical vesicle you have, and this is the second neuron. This is the second neuron. So this is called as presynaptic membrane. Presynaptic membrane, and in this membrane you have this 12 pass receptor. You have this 12 pass receptor. You have, what is this presynaptic membrane? Or what is this neuron? When there is a conduction of impulse or transfer of impulse, it releases certain chemical transmitters like acetylcholine, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine. So all these things are released. These are all called as monoaminergic neurons, because they release all the like what are neurotransmitters that I said, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. They are all monoaminic compounds. They are all derived from a single amino group, single amino acid. So such neurons that are involved in the transfer of these neurotransmitters, they are all called as monoaminergic neurons. They are called as monoaminergic neurons. Monoaminergic neurons. So I will repeat again, what is this monoaminergic neurons? Monoaminergic neurons are those neurons that are involved in the transfer of certain neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. So that is all monoaminergic neuron. So now, when there is a transfer of an impulse or a conduction of impulse, lot of dopamine is released. Let me take dopamine as an example. Lot of dopamine substances are released. These dopamine goes and binds to the opposite nerve ending, and there it is binding to a dopamine receptor. So dopamine receptor will be there that goes and binds to the dopamine receptors. Now the leftover dopamine is just being wasted. So this receptor just collects this dopamine and it puts back into this neuron. It collects this dopamine and it transfers back into the neuron for the next impulse to be transferred. So what happens? There is excess of dopamine released. Only those dopamine which goes and binds to that next neuron, it gets transferred. There are certain dopamine that are left, that are scattered over here, which are not bound to the receptors. So to the neighboring receptors. So this 12 pass receptors, they go and bind to the dopamine, or dopamine binds to that, and it takes the dopamine and it puts it inside. So this transmits the remaining, the scattered dopamine. So this is the significance of 12 pass receptor, or this is the function of one such receptor. So these are the receptors that are present on the presynaptic membranes of monoaminergic neurons, present in the monoaminergic neurons. So these are the different types of receptors that we discussed in this video. A quick recap of what we discussed. We saw the structure of the receptor, what they should have, and what is the function of receptor and ligand, how they bind, the interaction ligand receptor complex, and all those things we studied. ligand binding domain and effector binding domain we saw. Then we categorize the different types of receptors based on where they are present. So we have 4 types, that is if they are present outside extracellular receptors that we studied first. Then we studied on the transmembrane receptors or membranous receptors. They are present on the plasma membrane or on the cell membrane, and the receptors that are present inside the cell are called as intracellular receptors. They might be scattered in the cytoplasm or the cytosol, or they might be present inside the nucleus also. DNA is also one such receptor. Then we move on to the transmembrane receptors. We have diversified transmembrane receptors. We started from single pass receptor, insulin receptors or tyrosine kinase receptors. Then we went on to ionic channels or ligand gated channels, 4 or 5 pass receptors they are called as. Then we moved on to the 7 pass receptors or serpentine receptors, example GPCR, and then last type is 12 pass receptors. So it was just chosen randomly and it was a wide category. There are certain other receptors of not much significance, or there which is not dealt very detailedly. So I hope this video is very clear on the types of receptors that are involved in cell signaling. If you like this video, do give a thumbs up and share with your friends, and subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.